I'm going to say a word that I don't like to say because it feels like it belongs in everything with Jewish content, which is
welcome to Bringing It to the Table with Whit and Flo.
the Black Jewish friendship you didn't know you needed.
We talk about identity, faith, and justice.
And whatever else comes up when two educated, opinionated, badass women come to the table. Whitney, there is a hobby or a habit that you and I both have. I only learned, every layer that I get to know you more and more, I find out how meant to be this is.
Oh, Lord.
We both love consignment shopping.
Yes. Yes. I was so worried.
Okay. Wait, first three things you think of. What did you think I was going to say?
I don't know, because I'm like, what do we have in common? We both like to eat.
Okay.
We both love good media, so like painting, art, singing, etc. And we both really like talking about stuff.
Okay, all right. No, but I wanted to talk about shopping.
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, my whole outfit is from Goodwill, all the way down to the shoes, not socks, not the other.
No. There's about swimsuits, workout clothes. Ugh. That's all new.
Yeah.
But there is a particular, for me, a joy in the find.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
I love it's the one time where my detailed brain gets to look at, touch, try on every single thing, and it gives me such joy to find. It's like a treasure hunt.
So I love that.
It's like a treasure hunt.
Drives my sister nuts because I can now walk into a consignment shop and just be like,
yes, yes, it's a superpower. It's for sure a superpower.
I love that superpower. So what else? Where do you find joy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I find joy, first of all, I'm an introvert, so I find joy in quiet. But I think if I was thinking more generally, I find a lot of joy in being around my people. Like, Black people are in my opinion, are the funniest group of people I have ever met in my life. Quick-witted, like, we always have a joke somewhere, like, there's just joy in being in community around my people.
And is there, talk to me a little bit about Black joy.
Right.
What is Black joy or Black women's joy?
Sure. Well, we're not a monolith. So I think for me, Black joy, instead of telling you what it is, I can tell you what it's made from. Right?
I love
so
that.
Black joy is made from connection, creativity, spontaneity. It comes from like shared unspoken rules. It comes from like, there are videos that float around the internet where people like mock church people, and in the comments you can see Black people saying like, do we all go to the same church? So it's like this shared common understanding of like resilience, but not resilience as coming from a challenge, but resilience as taking nothing and turning it into something. Like Black joy comes from taking nothing and turning it into something.
Oh, that's amazing. And also another thing that came up for me just now is that we had talked about allyship maybe coming from pain, but you're telling me that joy comes from resilience.
Well, and I think just quickly, I want to remind us that my joy is not because of, it's not in spite of, it's because of. So I think sometimes when people think about Blackness, they think about it as the opposite of whiteness. But if I am always defined by tragedy, or if I'm always defined by chaos, then you don't actually know who I am. So Black joy is independent, right? So even though it was even though we came through all the things we came through, Black joy is its own thing. And it doesn't require us. Our Black joy is not against anybody else. It is for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say a word that I don't like to say because it feels like it belongs in everything with Jewish content, which is Holocaust.
Yeah.
Right? And it just feels like if you're doing something Jewish, you have to mention the Holocaust. On the Passover Seder, if you didn't mention these three things, you haven't gathered. And if you're doing Jewish content, you have to bring up the Holocaust.
Yep.
And I don't want my Jewish identity defined by or in opposition to that tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about how oftentimes I think Black people, the thought is that our identity begins with being enslaved. And I'm specifically saying enslaved instead of being slaves because it was done to us, right? But I think people start our history there, which means that they miss all the beauty and brilliance that comes before that and all the beauty and brilliance that comes after that. And I'm not saying, like, there are some people who say, well, why can't you just forget about slavery? Well, first of all, stop that. Second of all, that's not today's conversation. But I think that, like you said, being defined by those major negative events almost prevents us from being able to embrace our joy fully.
That's right. And to be clear, I'm not minimizing
not at
this
all.
tragedy.
Absolutely.
I am the descendant
Absolutely.
of a survivor.
Absolutely.
It was a horrible tragedy, but part of the tragedy was the gloriousness richness of Jewish life that was destroyed.
That's right.
And that's the part in processing the trauma of this horrible tragedy, we are not remembering.
That's right.
The gloriousness of life that was.
That's right. I'm reminded of Miriam in the Bible who, and Moses did too, although a womanist examination of what happens when they came through the Red Sea is that Moses sort of got up there and was like, I'm about to sing a song. Y'all need to sing it with me. And Miriam was like, bring the tambourines, girls. We about to get this thing going. Right. So it makes me think about, they could have, I'm going to go out and come back in. This is my neurodivergent perking. So Joy DeGroy has this book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And what she argues is that the impacts of being enslaved is actually passed on from pregnant person to baby, right? That you can't get away from it. There are impacts of it unless you're aware of it. But I think about Miriam, after coming out of slavery, decided to sing and decided to dance. And what an example of that. And what an example for us of joy, of finding joy even in the midst of chaos, right? I think that there's something powerful there, that joy was something that they owned and it was communal.
Okay, I'm going to take us out to go back in. You just said you're taking us out to go back in. So I'm going to take us out for a second and say, you just said, you said slavery, the impacts of slavery were passed on, and expanding from there, that means that traumas are passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah, so that word is epigenetic. And so what Joy DeGroy, my mama said that I get too academic sometimes, so mama, my bad. Joy DeGroy's post-traumatic slave syndrome asserts that if the impacts of slavery are not interrupted between carrier and child or carrier and baby, that you run the risks of having certain characteristics as a result of that trauma, right? So this is different from PTSD because PTSD comes from an incident, whereas post-traumatic slave syndrome, PTSS, comes from an incident that you don't even know about, but is held literally in your bones. It's held in your synapses. It's held in your body.
And you said if it's not interrupted, what are ways in which it can be interrupted?
Joy.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So one of the ways, to talk about that, we'll talk about some of the impacts of that. Hypervigilance. Doesn't sound familiar at all, right? So hypervigilance, the crab in the bucket mentality, wanting to be white. Those are all impacts of PTSS. And so in order to get to joy, you have to consciously, first of all, you got to know that that's what you're experiencing.
Naming it is part of what helps you heal from it.
That's right. That's right. Because if not, you tell me all the time there's a there. You know there's a there, but you just don't know what it is. You're like, I'm hypervigilant and nothing is wrong. I'm in fight or flight mode and I'm literally just sitting in my living room. But I mean, as we've seen over the past couple years, like anti-Semitism is on the rise. Anti-Black racism is on the rise. After George Floyd was murdered publicly, right? Black people started seeing more and more incidences of racism. And so that does something to you. That does something to you in the immediate, but at the molecular level, your body says, oh no, we are back in that time again.
Because your body carries the memory of that. Even if you
That's
can't
right.
name it, it has been passed down to you because the trauma has not been processed.
That's right. So there's 2 books. One that I recommend, Resmaa Menachem, My Grandmother's Hands. Resmaa Menachem is an author that worked with the Minneapolis police, where George Floyd was, to talk about how locked in trauma manifests itself in certain actions. And unless you address that, then you run the risk of passing it on to future generations.
And again, I don't want to take a concept that is very specific, post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yes.
But the hypervigilance,
Yes.
the urgency,
Yep.
the perfectionism.
Yeah.
These are things that
Yeah.
when you and I have our daily calls or daily
Yep.
check-ins, and I say, I feel more human
Yep.
when we're in conversations because I see similar behaviors in my lived experience, and then I say, oh, is this
Yep.
connected to
Is
the
this
collective
collective
trauma
trauma?
that's been passed on to me that has not been processed?
Absolutely. One of my favorite professional development opportunities was unlearning Jewish anxiety.
Did you unlearn it? Did you learn it first? Did you?
But what was fascinating about that course, to your point, is for almost everything the rabbi taught us, I was like, oh, that's me. That's me. And even though the course was called Unlearning Jewish Anxiety, and again, there's a diversity in the Jewish community. Like, this is not about like, oh, you know, white Jewish folk over here have it different. No, because not all Jewish folk are white. It was seeing myself in that trauma, and what the rabbi taught us is one of the ways to interrupt it is by joy, and another way to interrupt it is by being present. So you and I have only met in person how many times?
I think this is 4.
Right. But we connect every day, and almost every day. And so I'm thinking about how one of the ways that we erode that is just by connecting, by being present. Like, we were driving here today, and I was like, you know, if you need to just take a minute to handle those things, you can handle those things. Because we were like talking and driving and music was going and all of that, but it's just like being in the moment.
Right. And when every time we meet up and
Right.
I'm ready to dive right into whatever we're doing.
Yep.
Is that urgency,
Yep.
perhaps? Right.
Sure.
You stop by saying, wait, how's your heart?
Right.
Because we got to bring our whole self. We always bring our whole selves to
Right.
the table. So let's start with checking in on how we are.
Right.
And then the work will follow.
Well, and our brains would lead us to believe that there's no time for that, that's like the fluff stuff, whatever that means. And I refute that, right? Like Miriam and Moshe, for the most part, Moses could have said like, y'all, we got to build these tents, we got to do this, we got to do that. And they were like, no. Let's take a moment to sing. Let's take a moment to dance. Let's take a moment to celebrate. And I think that that's my favorite part about Black Joy. We celebrate everything. You should see us show up at a pre-K graduation. Baby, we are showing out. We are yelling. We are excited. Pookie did it and we love it. It is just like everything sparks joy. Even at a funeral, you are going to find us giggling sometimes during the funeral because things are just like, there's literally a question around that's like, tag the person in this post that you shouldn't be sitting next to during a funeral. And I know exactly who that person is in my mind because everything is stinking funny, right? I'm thinking of even now, like there's this very big public rise in line dancing with Black people. And that came up after this current election cycle. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking to myself one day, we find a way to metabolize chaos into joy.
Say more.
There is something about when the world seems to be churning in a way that is just like insurmountable, we dance, or we sing, or we clap, or we joke. You have to watch it. There's a video that's called like 5 minutes of Black men running through flower fields. There's a hashtag that's Black Boy Joy. And we are able to maybe not metabolize, but what we do is we take it in or not. We observe it. My therapist, my Jewish Orthodox therapist, taught me you don't have to ingest everything you observe. And
You don't have to ingest everything you observe.
Yeah.
Okay.
he was talking to me because I would get on the call and I would say, Ari, shout out to Ari. I would say, Ari, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. And finally he said, Whitney, you don't have to ingest everything you observe. And I think that that's what Black joy is. It's observing, but it's not taking it.
I also think that that is an amazing survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
Of being able to say, like, there are bad things, and we are going to process that, and we are going to still have our joy.
That's right.
And as a Jewish person, I also really identify with that.
Yeah.
And my Jewish identity is so much about moments of Jewish joy.
That's right.
Or joy in being Jewish. It's funny, I can't separate the word Jewish joy and Jewish pride. For me, those are really, really related.
Right.
One thing that brings immense Jewish joy is connecting.
Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you are familiar with Jewish geography, right?
Listen.
Like,
listen, it's something like I've never seen. And I mean that in the most respectful way, but in every conversation I've been in, when someone is like, do you know someone? And it's like, yep, I know, right? And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because there's a joy when you identify, even if you don't really like that person, you're still just like, oh yes, I know that person.
Or like the quote, you know all the celebrities who are Jewish.
Yep.
Or you discover that another celebrity or favorite show is, and that can be either, oh my gosh, there's a Jewish character in that.
That's right.
You might not like the Jewish character, but you're just so excited that you, versus also, you just know, it's like, I have a Rolodex in my head and I just know.
Yeah. So when I worked with the organization that I worked for, that was one of the problems. Actually, the Jewish geography that was being practiced was actually creating a bottleneck and even like shutting out certain people because of it. But back to joy, I think that something else that strikes me about Black joy is also in our like expression of self, right? So nothing makes me happier than fluffing out my afro. Nothing makes me happier, right, than my hair that reaches towards the sky. And even when I think about my children's giggles, I tell people that that's my favorite soundtrack, is just to hear them laugh, right? To see their little toes. My joy comes from, so there's a saying in the Black religious community, or in the Black Christian community, we say, I don't look like what I've been through. And when I am able to count my baby's toes, or when I'm able to hold the hands of the person that I love, that's when it becomes most important for me to be aware of how trauma might erode the joy that I'm feeling, right? Because another thing I found myself doing was waiting for the ball to drop, which is a thief of joy. I could never be completely happy about whatever was happening because I was like, oh, something else is going to happen.
That's right.
But I think Black joy is about being present and about being okay with others not understanding our joy. Because it's not for everybody.
I think joy, for me, Jewish joy is found in community. It's found in togetherness. It's found in these connections that you can make.
Yes, yes. And camp.
And summer camp?
Yes.
Yeah, you know that like if you meet somebody, if a Jewish person meets somebody and they're curious, where'd you go to summer camp? And that can be a way of asking without asking.
Yes, yes, I'm learning. Yes. But also like, I know that you said that you don't sing naguns, but there's a moment of singing. Just the beauty of there's a song for everything.
There's a song for everything, and nigunim are melodies, right? And can be very spiritual melodies, but music is very central to me personally, to my family, Jewish music, some Yiddish music. My brother is a Jewish musician, and my niece has a musical ear. She's 4.5, and I just got a video. She heard a song in a public park, and she was just so enraptured. So my lovely part Ashkenazi, part Persian 4.5-year-old American-Israeli Jewish niece is walking through the botanical garden singing, "Play that funky music, white boy." And let me tell you something, that is joy.
Yes.
That is joy and abandon and love.
Yes.
And
yes. Yes. I love that. I love that so much. Talk to me about Jewish joy in food. Like, what food brings you Jewish joy?
What food brings me Jewish joy? Cooking for people brings me Jewish joy.
Yeah.
Having an elaborate Shabbat dinner brings me Jewish joy. I never wanted to be the Jewish woman who makes challah.
Yeah.
My Jewish identity is so much more than that, and that felt like such a stereotype's not the right word, but cliche But I love making I love making challah for Shabbat.
Yeah, you do.
Then there's something also about that. It already is Shabbat because the ritual of making the bread, then braiding the bread, of like having. There's something about the process. The yeast has to rise 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I love my white Ashkenazi self making kube soup. To be clear, that kube soup is not from my own tradition.
Sure.
But similarly, that is a multi-stage process, and I'm like infusing these the kube for soup are like meatballs covered in a semolina dough. I make a vegetarian version that in a beet soup. It takes at least all day. But I'm like infusing it with love and thinking about the people who will be eating it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Ashkenazi Jewish food is a particular brand. So I don't.
You know what's cracking me up is I said, "What food brings you joy?" You're like, "I like to cook."
Latkes will make your house smell for a very long time.
So are you are you a sour cream or an applesauce latke person?
I'm a don't eat fried foods person.
Don't eat fried food. Like you don't eat fried foods at all?
I don't eat fried foods at all. That's not a Jewish thing. That's just a me thing.
Oh, Lord.
So,
I don't think I knew that about you.
Really?
Oh, no. And we've eaten together many times. Okay. Well, that's that. Yep.
What foods bring you joy?
So, we have soul food. I think I kind of like your answer, right? The foods that bring me joy are the foods that I can cook with my babies, right? The recipes that I can pass down with and to my babies. Like I cook 5 out of 7 days a week because there's 5 of us in the house and we're constantly eating and it's too expensive to eat out. And so whether it's like breakfast for dinner, whether it's like prepping for Thanksgiving dinner where I'm teaching my 15-year-old how to make the cornbread dressing, or whether I'm teaching my 4-year-old how to wash greens and how to cut, how to shave the skin off the sweet potatoes, or whether I'm teaching the 7-year-old who I think also might be like his mom, like which gloves to wear to touch the meat, right? Like, I don't think that there's a specific food that brings me black joy, but there's a specific tradition of you teaching the next generation how to cook that is just, it's such a beautiful memory for me. My grandmother, I'll never forget, I was staying with her and she would make me cook her something. I would take her to her. She would be like, "That's not right." And she would throw it away and make me do it again. And that sounds cruel, but it was really her loving me. It was her sharing her traditions and her recipes with me in her own special way. And now I'm able to do that. And my mother did that with me, and my mother and father are both excellent cooks. And now, like, my mom likes my food, and I kind of like, it's like the thing. And my 15-year-old was like, "Mom, when I become famous, can you come be a chef in my home?" And I'm like, "What do you want me to do with your dad?" And he's like, "We're not talking about that right now." So it's just this idea of being able to, again, take nothing and turn it into something.
I'm glad you brought up your grandmother. When I think about my grandmother, I think about unconditional love.
Yeah.
I think about the candy closet she had, and we would come to her house and open that door and go there.
Yes.
And
my grandma had a cake plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she would, oh God, my grandmother. I wear this ring every day. It was hers. Grandma Belle. She made eggs for breakfast, and I loved those eggs.
Yep.
She would make us 3 jars of compote for Passover. Passover,
Yeah.
you're in a lot of matzah, so you need some dried fruit mixture. But the 3 jars is where we're, and then she would make us eat herring on New Year's Eve for good luck.
Yeah, Black people do that. We fry
Really?
fish. We fry fish. We have greens, and we eat beans. It's supposed to represent dollars and coins and prosperity and fertility for some folks.
That's so fascinating because I thought the herring eating was.
We don't eat herring. Well, listen, I don't know. I don't eat herring, but it's definitely a thing on New Year's Eve to do greens, black-eyed peas specifically,
Okay.
and fish.
Well,
What's the so what, Flo?
I think the so what is that we, both of us in our lived experiences and in our community's lived experiences, have traumas that different traumas that express themselves in similar ways,
Yeah.
but that joy and naming are paths out of those traumas.
That's right.
And so actually connection gives us the opportunity to
right.
better know ourselves,
That's right.
to name those experiences, and then to heal, both
Yeah.
of us to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So now it's your turn. Take this talk, stir it up with your people, and see what rises. Whether you're at the Shabbat table
The Sunday dinner table,
or the coffee table. Don't forget to bring it.
and remember, you always have a seat at our table.